When Flex Innovations released the version 2 of their Cessna 170, I got one immediately. One of the things I really like about this plane is the Aura 8 that doesn't get faked out when you start using a rudder and a little cross control. Flex gave their original Cessna a huge flight envelope, and version 2 is even bigger. I still had the first version of the Flex Cessna 170 and decided rather than sell it, I had a better idea. Ritchie Davis is a good friend of mine, but he's a better pilot than he thinks he is. I decided to give Ritchie that first 170 and then teach him how to fly it. This clip is of Ritchie flying the Cessna on either the end of his first day or beginning of the second day of training. And this is his first crosswind takeoff. I'd like to say that this is worse than my first takeoffs with the Cessna, but that wouldn't be true. I had that first Cessna on one of my Spectrum DX9 radios. So I gave that DX9 to Ritchie, along with a second one that I had so he could use the wireless buddy box, something I really like. Ritchie also flies helicopters, so getting him to use the rudder wasn't a big deal. I did have a pretty hot setup in the Cessna yet from when I flew it. On the third day or so of flying, we would tone the rudder down a little bit, and that helped him a lot. As you can see here, he's not having any trouble flying the Cessna or keeping it in the area. That wireless training system comes in really handy when you start doing things lower to the ground, like learning to set up approaches for landing. We do have trays on both ends of our runway, but they're far enough out that with a little control, they're not an issue. Ritchie realized he wasn't over the runway, kept it at that altitude and powered out. I didn't have to touch it. One of the tougher things for any pilot to do is to learn where to turn in to come down the center of the runway. Factor in those trees, and it takes a little bit longer to get this down. And he's closer yet this time. The other thing is learning how high to be when you make that final turn in. The Cessna can fly some ridiculously slow speeds, so we're not using the flaps here yet. There just isn't any better way of learning to make landings than to do a whole bunch of them. Ritchie was getting a little frustrated that he wasn't making the perfect landings yet, but he's got to realize it just takes practice, and it did for everybody. Here Ritchie did a lot better job turning in, but he was a little bit high. This is the point when I'm teaching somebody that I watch for the nose to get pushed down all of a sudden, but Ritchie didn't do it. I didn't have to do anything. Ritchie recognized it, got on the gas, and flew it around. One of the things I love about this wireless training system is that I don't have to do anything other than start flying to take the plane away from the student and they get in trouble. That means I can let them get a little lower before I take over so they can see what the problem was. Ritchie wasn't jerking the plane around at all yet, so I let it get a little closer to the ground before I took over, like right there. I tell my students to keep on flying no matter what until I tell them not to. I think students learn faster when they see what happens when you get down low and what you need to do to correct it. This is the next time around, and Ritchie was flying fine. He wasn't all nervous or anything. He was a little long, but he got it right down to the ground, powered it up, and went around. Once again, I didn't have to say anything. Ritchie saw what was going on, gave it some gas, and flew it around. As so often happens, the wind changed direction at our field. That means Ritchie had a whole new visual of this plane coming into the ground. He's a little bit jerky with the elevator, but he's doing a lot better. Here again, he's a little high, but he's managing things. And this would turn out to be his first landing all by himself. I never had to touch the controls. In the next month or so, I'll help to make another video and we'll show you Ritchie all on his own. He's well on the way to doing that.